Oh. Okay, so we're getting started here in this webinar on Outlook with AutoHotkey. I'm Joe Glines, and my colleague Jackie here, or there. Hi, Jackie. Yeah.
Hello.
I guess I got a point there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're just starting. So for those of you who aren't used to this, we start off with everybody being muted, except for us two, not because we think we're that important. It's just because when you have too many people trying to talk at the same time, it gets chaotic. And so this is the simple way. If you have questions, there's a chat, and you can, reminds me I need to expand my chat so I can see it better. But either Jackie or I will, when one of us is talking, the other person generally is monitoring the chat to see what's going on. And so I'm in Dallas, Texas. I've been using AutoHotkey for, I don't know, like 8 years, roughly, somewhere in there. And I'm not a programmer, and I don't pretend to be one. Although I coded some stuff the other day where I wanted to use an object, and I didn't go look at a cheat sheet. I just wrote it freehand, and I had to restructure stuff. And anyway, and it worked without doing anything. And I was so happy that I'm actually getting it. But Jackie here, you want to say a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jack, and I'm from Denmark, living just outside of Copenhagen. And I've been using AutoHotkey from the beginning of 2012, so that's about 5.5 years or something like that. And I've been talking to Joe for maybe 3, or I'm just guessing here, but something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just love sharing what we do with AutoHotkey and how well we actually feel that it does the stuff that we need it to. So yeah, very happy.
Cool. So we're gonna. Oh, and by the way, we have 65 people registered. Now we know. Usually we see about half of that, right, at some point.
Yeah.
And that was also why we were saying let's start. Just give a few more minutes, but people get busy, right? And we record these, and Jackie or I aren't trying to make money, right? We just want to help people learn more with AutoHotkey or anything really, just to help save time.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I mentioned earlier, right now you're muted. Later on, after the first hour, we'll change it where you can unmute yourself and ask a question. But if you have a question, you can either raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we'll get to you. And then we're going to jump in here. So the first example, we start off with, hey, let's demonstrate a cool script that we use. And so I wanted to demonstrate this fuzzy search. It's called SIFT. And it's from Fantastic Guru, and it basically uses either regular expressions or n-grams. And n-grams I put here. It's basically like this. This 3 characters in a row. That's an n-gram of 3. If I had all 4, that's an n-gram of 4, right? So that's what an n-gram is, and it uses that, and it looks, instead of, if you're trying to ever do string matching, which if you're trying to join databases from different systems or whatever, and you're using strings, it can really suck. Right, because people will type their name slightly different in a different system, and little things get off. And so being able to fuzzy match as opposed to just a straight up match is really great. And so I'm going to launch this. This is a picture of it here. I'm using that Quick Access Pro to launch a Swift. Here we go, fuzzy search. So here, you know what? I think that's going to confuse people. I'm going to hide that. Or I guess I'm not. Okay, well, I can do that. Okay, so this is the text that's in there, and if right now it's let's say if I'm doing a left, and if I start typing where, see how it filters down by WH. That's everything it's matching on the left. If I do a in anywhere in it where it has the word, it will stay in here. If I do ordered characters, if it looks for the order of the letters I'm typing, and as long as they're in that order somewhere in the string, it'll keep this list here. Unordered, I guess, matches them anywhere. Ordered words, unordered words, and then you have the n-grams, which again can be a different way to do matching. And so this program isn't a way to say, here's your function, go, now you can go use it. It's just to help teach you there are different approaches to using fuzzy matches, and it's all tied together. And so I thought it was pretty darn cool, right, to have it handy like that.
Yeah, I actually found it funny that you chose this one for this one, Joe, when I actually read the deck the other day. because I'm currently looking at fuzzy searching, and the reason that I actually need it is because I've been forced to actually use OCR on some
Oh
text
boy!
on screen,
Wow. Yeah.
and yeah, the OCR today is pretty good at actually recognizing all the characters on screen,
Yeah.
but it sometimes fails anyway. And a fuzzy search, because I actually
Sure.
had a definitive list of the stuff that it's looking at. So it always needs to find a match in the list. And so if it actually OCRs the text from the screen and searches the list, if it does a fuzzy search instead,
Yeah.
even though it actually didn't get that R in search or that F in fuzzy, or it's
Right.
thought that the F was, I don't know, an 8 or something
Yeah.
like that, it still has the best chance of actually finding what I'm looking for.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
it was just interesting.
And that's what to me with the engrams, you can adapt them and make tweaks to how conservative or liberal you're matching things. The other things you can do that too, but this is the engram. It was a lot easier to do that. But yeah, that's a great usage of that when you think, oh, I'm using one or the other. But a smarter approach, you're right, is well, go ahead and use the OCR, but then don't match exactly on that, right? And yeah, that's cool. Awesome. And then I'll send out probably later tonight or tomorrow. I will send out the this deck that we cover, right? For anyone which you guys are all probably registered, right? I'll email the deck out, links to it, and the videos that we record after. But just so you know, this link goes, I think, to Wikipedia. But this regular expressions one, we actually did a webinar on regex, and so, I'm sorry, this one engrams goes to Wikipedia. But the regular expression is a webinar we did on it, and it was, I think, very helpful.
Yeah, a lot of people like that.
All right, so first off, so we also, which actually, and I don't know if I remember if I hyperlinked this one to it. Anyway, I'll have to figure out. But we did a webinar already on using Comm with Excel. Basically, is the focus. And actually, now that I think about it, the web scraping one also was really on Comm with IE, and this one's on using Comm with Outlook. But I figured maybe not everyone has been there and using it. But Comm it's the component object model from Microsoft that's kind of, I think of it as like it's built into the vast majority of their programs, and other programs like SPSS, which is not a Microsoft product. It has it as well, right? It's a backbone that allows you to programmatically connect with the program and to drive it, much like VBA does inside Excel. Now, Jackie, do you know, does it actually using the same? Does VBA use Comm, or does VBA have a different connection?
I don't know exactly. I would say that the Comm object module is a way to actually structure your underlying memory addresses, so that when you actually access a Comm object, the reason the different programs can do that is because it knows where the pointer is, and that pointer is always the same space from the next element within it. So that's how it works. And of course, VBA is built on the same technologies. So.
You know that it's funny because you just reminded me that article I sent the other day to you, the Comm surrogate thing. That was one of the things they mentioned in it. I should have remembered that was the memory address. It knows where things are, which is why it allows you to interact with everything, memory address wise.
Exactly.
This was just a list I threw together. Most of these links are from the forum, AutoHotkey forum, and so if you use any of these programs, you can use Comm to connect to them and to programmatically, instead of sending keystrokes, right? Programmatically, you can interact with them and do things. But the list is not exclusive in any sort, right? There are, I'm sure, I don't want to say millions, but tens of thousands of programs, that have Comm built into it.
Yeah, most likely, yeah. These are just some of the bigger ones. And some of the great stuff is that if you, let's say, do a task in PowerPoint, before it actually returns, for the most part, it will have already done the task you asked it to, so you don't need sleeps and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? Yeah, and the other one, which Jackie, I don't want to steal your thunder because you brought it up earlier, but we weren't recording. I think it'd be great to throw it in here. Is explain why Outlook is different than Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and and other Office programs.
Yeah. One of the things that a lot of people notice quickly when they use these macros for Excel and stuff is that it's not built into Outlook. Outlook has the Comm, it has VBA, all of it is supported just as well as in the other programs. But for some reason, you just don't have the macro recorder available. So someone who's not used to coding but still wants to do a simple task will still need to actually write code or at least download it from somewhere and use something they don't understand. Whereas in Excel and Word and PowerPoint and some of the others, you can actually record a macro and then just run that. Whereas in Outlook, you have to actually look at the code or even write the code yourself. So to me, it's just as easy to do that in AutoHotkey as in VBA. And if you know AutoHotkey, why not stay in AutoHotkey and keep using that?
But having said that, though, the two, when you look at them using Comm, the syntax is so similar, right? Overall. Which is also why, for me, now I'm so much better at VBA than I used to be because I got used to AutoHotkey. And I look at the VBA, I'm like, oh, I can follow that, right? It makes sense to me.
Yeah. I'd say that almost everything that you look at in VBA, or at least until you get really down and dirty with it, it will look almost exactly like code made for Comm in AutoHotkey.
Yeah.
There's a few things with the equal signs and VBA doesn't have, let's say, parameters in a sequential way. You can just name a parameter and use it without actually putting them in exact sequence. But other than that, it's very much the same.
In the other distinction, just so people realize, is inside Excel, you'll get it, and Excel will show you it'll have like a variable name for a value, but it actually has a constant value behind it that's like a number, like 1 or 5. And actually, I have an example in my script I'll show you. And Excel translates it because it stored all the values for you. But in AutoHotkey, you have to tell it, oh, don't put in bold, put in 3, right? And so you need to look up that constant value. All right, let's get going here. So the first one here, and before we actually get into the code, I just want to talk about, all right, let's say we're going to create an HTML email in Outlook, right? So there's a couple things you got to do first, which is what we were talking about. You have to connect to Outlook, or you can create a new one. But I tried this before. I wouldn't have Outlook running, and I would just create my new mail with the Comm object, and I could. It worked fine, but it would never deploy because I would create it, do all the stuff, and even if I say send, it doesn't actually trigger the SMTP server, like actually deploying of it until I reopen Outlook later. And so my rule of thumb is like, who cares? Have Outlook open and just connect to Outlook, and that way when you create a new mail item, you can send and it deploys, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and you can even keep Outlook hidden.
That's a good point. Yeah. Right. And so I have some good links in here. This one is to your typically for an email, of course, you're going to create this is the mail item object. And then we need to provide some properties for the parameters, some values for them. And so we're going to specify, like if you have more than one email account on your Outlook, I have 6. You want to make sure, you want to control which one is coming out of, right? So I like defining that. You want to say, is it going to be an HTML, RTF, or text email? Who are you going to send it to? Identify who's going to, it's going to be sent to. Populate the subject line. This is going to be for an HTML email, the body. Do you want to have attachments? These other ones, I listed them last because I'm like, or these here, I should say. They're a little less often that I use them, but basically, let's say you wanted to make your boss think that you worked really late, right? You could have it, sit in your queue and then deploy it like 10 p.m. instead of going out right away. And the delivery request and receipt and mark at different levels of importance. These are all things, parameters you can set. And then you basically either want to say, I want to see it in front of me, or do I want it to just deploy, right? Or you can have it do both with a sleep in between or something like that. This next one is actually just a reminder to myself. After we do this first one, we're going to convert it doing like a mail merge.
Yeah.
So here is my, this basically walks through everything that we just talked about, right? This first item here, I'm connecting to Outlook. Oh, you know, it's so funny. I turned off my Outlook because I didn't want to get all these emails coming in during the webinar. And yet here I am, like, saying how I leave it open, so I need to reopen it. And I'm defining, so once I connect to it and I store it in this variable called mail item, right? And that's what, I'm going to create a new mail item object. And that's what this is doing. And if I actually put, so if I save this, reload it, and run it, I had the other script running. Sorry. There we go. So that's a 1, and that's just saying it's saying is this thing right here an object? And now yes, it's an object, right? That's how I just proved that out. So I'm gonna get rid of that. I just want to demonstrate it. So now I'm going to point to this object, and I'm going to set different values for it. So here is where I tell it, and this there are 2 ways, and I wrote here you can use the namespace stuff, and it's really archaic to me to understand which one you're doing, although you can use an indexed value as well. But I forget who offered it up on the forum of using this one instead, and I'm like, holy cow, that's so much easier to make sure I'm using the right email account, right, to go out from.
Sure.
Now here's an example where the body format, I'm setting it to 2. Now, a 2, this is where you have to do your homework, right, is an HTML email. If I set it to a 1, it would create a text email. Or if I set it to a 3, it'd be a rich text format email. And so I want to create an HTML email. And here I'm going to define who do I want to send it to. I'm going to send it to myself, apparently twice, because I'm setting it both in the to and the CC. And actually, you know, I should have had it in here. I believe that's for BCC.
Yeah.
If you wanted to have multiple in here, you would separate them with the semicolon, right, and just throw them in there.
Exactly.
And then, and now I'm going to set the subject line. This is just the example subject line. Here are some other items. Let's not even look at that yet, right? We'll come back to those. And now I need to define my body. Well, I thought, what would be fun is let's actually dynamically show, because this is where it gets a little tricky. You're playing with, here's the HTML, right? And actually, you know what? Let me see if I can. Here's my HTML preview. So this allows me to paste in HTML, and I hit run. It'll show you what it looks like in HTML. But that's just the HTML that I have in here. And the tricky part is when you're trying to pipe in a variable, you can do it this way. If you've set this up to define your text string using a join command without the quotes, because that's the other thing is like the double quotes around. Because if you have references and stuff with quotes in them and stuff, it starts getting really problematic. And so that's why I switched over to using this way to build my HTML. And it was like, oh, it made it much easier for me to read my code. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd say that I'm totally I don't know, advocate of actually using the colon before the equal, but for the join section where you actually have arbitrary text like HTML and you have a lot of characters that you need to handle separately.
Yeah.
I'm totally for just using the equal sign plain.
Yeah, I went back and forth with stuff. The only thing I don't like, and maybe you've used it enough, Jackie, I wish was because now I'm really switching over to using objects to store my values. And I was trying to figure out a way to use an object inside this, and I couldn't figure out a way to do it.
Nope. Okay. There's no real way of doing it in per se. There is maybe with the format command you could do some stuff, but Yeah, I'd say that's hard pressed.
Yeah.
And of course, version 2 will allow some variations of it, so you could actually do it that way because you can put an expression um, between these percentages. Instead of just a variable name, you could have an entire expression. So you could have the object expression there instead.
Oh, interesting. So also, just so you know, the other thing I like, when you add the word comments here, you can literally have in comments in here, but if I do a message box right here, when we see, oh, I got my other script running. It's all right. I use the same hotkeys in like the vast majority of my programs. So see inside here, this is the HTML. Also notice there are no line breaks, right? Because I didn't tell it to join it with line breaks. So there's no, this is a comment in here, right? And that's because I've told it allow comments, and that way I can put it here. Now, Site doesn't actually, it's not smart enough to say, oh, that's actually a comment and color it correctly. But it's nice because, man, when you have a lot of code, I can still inject comments inside this body and not have to leave it all blank. Otherwise, it would be in there. So anyway, or I'm going to comment it out now. I'm going to run it, all right? So, all right, let me finish here. So once we've set this HTML into the body, we need to tell it, hey, for that parameter, use that variable body. And now I'm going to say display it, which is going to make, basically, hopefully it pops up on this screen. It might be the other screen. Let me run it. And here we go. Here's our email, right? It's going, it filled in all these things for us. Put it in here, just saying hello. Right, it's that simple. There's, not sure if I need to say anything else, do I? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? Of writing one HTML email is really easy. Now, if I wanted to, you know what, let me, just because I don't want to get this 4 times. If I didn't want to, if I didn't want to see it, I'm gonna hit my script right now, and I'm gonna hit, and it just sent it. It's already gone out. Now my email will check it here in a minute, but it didn't notice, it didn't display it, right? And so if you had a bunch, you could just crank through and send them out and not even have to view them.
Yeah, you could easily have a list of names and just have it loop over the names and just switch that out in the HTML, and then have 10, hundreds, or 1,000 emails going out with the same text but a different name.
Mason was asking the question. I just thought, no, Mason, we were talking about using the join command and using an object inside the join command and referencing it and having it the way I'm using it here as a variable, but using an object inside there, referencing an object instead of a variable. Using join. So anyway, so Jackie, to your point, my very next thing, and you'll laugh how I do this because I use it so often now, right? I'm gonna type LP2. This is just a hot string, but this just dumped in. Here are a couple. I have email, first name, last name, and here's an email address and my first name, last name. It's tab delimited. You know what? And I can get rid of this other stuff here. I just use this so often that you know what? That one I wasn't supposed to get rid of. That's a good one. And these. So what we want to do, our goal is to say, let's say I had a bunch of people I wanted to send this same email to, and I wanted to personalize it to them, right? So right now, all I want to focus on, let me keep it simple here, is this top part I just piped in here, right? So I'm going to save this, reload it. When I run it, notice it's this line right here. So the string split row .1, string split row .2, and string split row .3, that's what's being displayed here, right? And when I hit OK, it's going to go through that loop and show me the next one, and then show me the next one. Oh, I guess I should have put a return down here.
Yeah.
So also, by the way, this, I have it in here where if it's equal to, if the row has nothing in it, it'll skip it, right? And that's why I have this here. So it doesn't actually come up, even if that row is blank, right? It won't even try to process it. But now we have an easy way to reference to parse out the first, second, and third thing from a tab delimited list And all we have to do, let me bring our email back up now, is I'm going to move this. I'm basically going to enclose that email. Oh, too far. Here we go. Right? Now this whole section is in my for loop, right? So everything, notice here if I minimize this, right? Everything is in this for loop. And what we, of course, need to do is say, you know what, I'm going to comment that out, but I'm going to grab this. And I'm going to say the name, well, I'm sorry, what was so email is, first name is the second one. So I'm going to change that, and then to your point, where's the send to? To, here we go. Okay, yeah. And that's the only, we don't, what was the third last name?
That's the last name, yeah.
Yeah, let's not even worry about the last name, right? We just want it to be personalized. So now, when I run this, is it going to display? Yeah, it's going to display.
Yeah.
So notice we just cranked through, hello, Joe, hello, Joseph, right? It just personalized the emails for them, right? So see how easy and powerful that is? To basically we've built in a mail merge based off of some data, these two lines, right? We could have actually with do you remember, Jack? It's a number of characters or something, right? I know because I've tried to do this with like 2,000 lines, and it says that continuation section's too long.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's actually a number of lines or is the number of
characters. I think it's characters.
65,000 characters or something like that.
Yeah, but you just switch it over to reading a file, right? And you read it in, and then you can just crank through your emails, and you can have, you know, in this example, I only have 3 mail merge for I had a good word for it, you know, 3 mail merge fields that I can, you know, populate into my now let's say again, you know, since objects can't be used, at least we don't think easily in here, I'm going to put in there. And now, and actually, you know what I wanted to do was, normally I do this. And that way they don't all crank out, right? And I can hit it, and that, oh, I didn't change the number. And this is why I love using Outlook and seeing it, because I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm an idiot, right? I think I do it right. There we go. So there's the first one, and if I hit OK, it'll build the second one, right? And of course, it would have just gone through and kept cranking out however many. I have one which you guys probably received for doing the stuff with the webinar, where I also have it to say this, instead of this like saying OK, it has 3. It says, do you want to deploy all? Do you want to cancel, or do you want to, you know, show the one at a time? And what I do is I'll get everything where I think it's right, and I'll show one, and I'll show like 3 in a row and go, everything looks good. Okay, deploy all, and all it does is just it changes the value that's being checked to whether or not to show that display or not, or sorry, message box or input box, and then cranks through all of them.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any? Yeah, thanks, Ken. Does anybody have any questions on that? I mean, it's then I should have mentioned these earlier, but if you wanted to add a file, right, you just put in add, and you can put in multiple of this, right, however many you want. Now when I run this, what? Oh, I didn't save it. I can see the asterisk there.
Yeah.
So now it has the attachment, right? So it's super easy to tweak. These are the different things you can set for. You can set the importance, make it, you know, at a higher level. You can set it to deploy later. You can set it, you know, these other things about whether you want it to trigger if people have read it or not, or if it's been delivered or not. So that's your basic HTML email.
Yeah. If you are on Outlook and you need to know the value of a constant, like the 2 of the body format, where would you, Joe, go and look for that?
I would go. I would follow this link, which is, you know, it's a link to the object model for, on MSDN.
Yeah, that's a fine place to find
You
it.
know, I'll try to remember. You know what? Let me add a note here in red. Because I've found it for like Excel and just like the one link that actually has, thousands of them. And I think that'd be a great ad to have in here that have it already done, right? Have that hyperlink available. So I'll try to remind myself to find that before I just send this out.
Do you remember if Outlook, does that also open the VBA editor with the F11?
I don't think it does. Yeah, I think, maybe, but it, maybe it does. So maybe I can, yeah. But I just don't remember. Well, let me. Oh, it did.
It did. Can you show that on screen? That one, yeah. If you go into View, I think it's View, and there you have the object browser F2. There you can also find the values. If you need to, let's say, find, the string value of the constant that you need. There you have HTML body. That's like, yeah. At the bottom there, you can see constant HTML 2.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love doing webinars, especially with people smarter than me. I get to learn stuff. That's awesome. I didn't know. I knew it was, well, actually, I didn't remember. I didn't realize it was actually defined like that. I knew from in VBA, I could go in and then mouse over, when it was running, I could mouse over it and see the constant, but I didn't realize you can look it up this way. And unfortunately, I'll never remember this, but I'll have to write myself a little reminder because that's as long, but okay, so we could still navigate down the path of wherever we are and then get there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you can use whatever method that you feel like. You can get the members of whatever, and you can actually see which constants are available and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just one of the ways of doing it, and I also scramble between doing it one way and the other, but this is one of the ones that I actually return to quite often because I kind of like the structure of actually finding stuff here.
Yeah. And I put it in the chat, but it's the Alt F11. I think, Jackie, yours is different, right? In Europe?
No? I can't remember if it's just a F11 or if it's also Alt F11. It might be Alt F11 as well.
I thought it. Yeah, anyway, yeah, that's a great tip. All right, so we're going to move on now to one a little bit, dialing it up a notch, right? And I have a great video demonstrating. Let me exit out of that script. But this next one, now, as I mentioned, we did a pretty good webinar on using Excel. So I don't want to go through and explain the Excel code unless you guys have questions. And it's what, 3:30? We're already halfway through this. So I'm happy at the end to answer the Excel questions, but for now I want to keep it focused on Outlook. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a spreadsheet. Oh, actually, there it is. Here's my spreadsheet, right? And let's pretend I had, columns with data and people in it. And this, of course, could be thousands, and I can have a lot of different columns. Back over in here, let me launch my script. I'll tell you at a high level what it does. Is it first, of course, connects to Excel. I look up in the headers, and I basically tell it to store it in an object, this LOC object. Tell me keep a reference to where the email column is, this variable first name, industry, and price, right? So those are string matches. So those have to be, I think they're case insensitive probably, but you have to have the exact spelling correct. But it'll store a reference to it, and then later in here, I loop over those in the header row and store a reference to where they are, and then down here in my email, I basically just reference them, and and here's the other really cool thing, right? This is the really fun thing. Let's pretend like this was a dynamic spreadsheet. I can highlight one and hit my hotkey, and it's going to write that one email, right? So notice it typed in "Hi Joe," checking to see if you're interested in the whatchamacallit. Actually, what? Oh no, I had the "How are things in medical devices?" So I personalized the subject line, and I personalized the price, right? But I have it interactive. Let's say I was on the second 2 rows, right? Whatever I'm highlighted on, I can hit my hotkey, and it will only trigger for those. So notice it didn't do the first one. It didn't do the medical devices. It did beer manufacturing and utilities.
Yeah.
So
great, you set it up to use the selection.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, this is, to me, if I was a salesperson and I had some personalized data on my contacts and stuff or anything, right, it makes it so easy to, as long as someone can build you your data in this, in some sort of a structure, to then just go through. And the other great thing with AutoHotkey and doing it this way is I can hit this, I could come in here and say, just personalize it a little bit for each person, right? But it builds all the rest of stuff and then hit enter, right? Mm-hmm. So it's nice because in a regular mail merge you don't have that kind of an option. This one, what I typically do is when I'm doing something like this, I'll have it do like 7 or 10 at a time and display them all, and then stop, and I go personalize each one, and then it'll continue to do the next 7, right? And you can get through a ton of personalized messages to people super easy.
Yeah, and this will cost you the price of an Office pack, whereas you don't actually need to go out and buy some kind of whatever plugin or other kind of mailing program. This is just done with the Office pack and AutoHotkey, which is free of charge.
Yeah, and even though I have a couple functions in here, but I mean it's 38 lines. I'm not even using all of it, right? It's so minimal. It's just ridiculous how easy it is to automate stuff. And yet I see people that work in sales or work in, like, let's say even accounting and stuff, and they're manually doing these things that I'd just be like, I would shoot myself if I had to do that.
Yeah, they're doing it for lots and lots and lots and lots of people all day long. Some people are even just hired for doing that.
That's true,
just
right?
Keeping, tabs on other people, keeping relations hot and stuff like that.
Did anybody have was there any questions on that? But basically we're connecting to Excel, and then programmatically from Excel, well, not from Excel, but using AutoHotkey to also pipe in the data from, we grab it from Excel and then send it to Outlook and personalize the messages going out.
Yeah.
Right. Can you show the spreadsheet again? And of course, it's arbitrary, right? How it's actually built and what's where.
He's taking screenshots for later. You'll get a video of this as well. And
I'm fine sharing. There's only one at the end I'm going to share. I'm going to demonstrate, but I'm not going to share. It's one I've developed and actually I can sell. But the nice thing here is, like, notice how I moved the email column, and let's make it really where there we go. And now I'll come back to my script, reload it, and run it. Oh, that's funny. I didn't have it. I was in the first column, right? So notice it doesn't matter what columns are in. That was one thing I'm like, you know what, if I could tie it into where, because sometimes when people give you data, even though they say it's all the same, but the structure changed, they move stuff around, and I'm like, you know what, this takes care of that, and it took very little code.
Mm-hmm.
I think he just wanted, our email addresses.
That's fair enough.
Just Jackie@test.com. That's a good one.
I actually have that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's the email one. Let me close it. Now, the next one that I want to demonstrate on how to do, if I remember correctly, is we're going to loop through emails in a certain folder. And let me bring over my Outlook. So under the automator and my inbox here, right, I have emails. And what I wanted to demonstrate in this script, and look how this one, there are no other functions, right? I'm connecting to this Outlook. This, by the way, this default folder 6, that'll be your default folder for your default inbox for your default account. But this is why this get default folders. That's still, yeah, that's still the inbox, but for AutoHotkey. And now when I run it, let me see if I can. Well, we don't have to see that, but let me launch it, and I'm gonna hit my hotkey, and you're gonna notice first it tells me there are 638 emails in the AutoHotkey folder. I guess I can't really see that because it has everything beneath it. Maybe it's down here. No, and it's trying to connect. But then when I hit OK, it's going to start looping over every email in my in that folder, right? And I only told it right here to say, present the subject, and just the 2 in the subject. Yeah, the body, because I don't care, but I have people's emails and stuff in here. I didn't want sharing their stuff, so I didn't want to show that. But it goes through, or I could actually have it populate and actually show the email, which is what I also didn't have it do. But and you know what? Actually, I even filtered on the subject here. It has to have the word AutoHotkey in the subject. So see how the word AutoHotkey is here, right? And so this is how you can use it to filter this loop here. I get the count of the emails that are in that folder, and then I start saying, okay, use that to count and loop over that many times because that's how many emails there are. But I'm checking the subject line every time to see if the word AutoHotkey is in it. If it is, then I'll do these next. So see how this paren is matched by this one, right? If it's in it, then it will do this. If it's not in it, it will skip it. So if I actually put something arbitrary in here and said, I'd have to find something that's really rare, right? Actually, I was trying to find one I wouldn't care about. Then we could actually display the body. But yeah, apparently, Jackie, you and I exchange a lot of emails.
Yeah.
Anyway, you guys get the idea. And here, this one above it, I can comment that one out and say, let's filter off of the sender name, right? And the sender name being where I sent it to myself. So every time Joe Glines will, now it's not the email address, right? That's different than the sender name, but it'll be from me. And it's just showing, what was there. I could also, instead of putting them in a message box, I could just say, oh, you know what I need to do when I do that? Come on. Is I always forget this. I'm glad I remembered.
I like that you actually use the R and not the line. You use the return and not the new line character.
Oh, yeah.
You often do that, Joe.
So here is those emails that were from me. I would have thought that.
You would have thought there were more, or?
No, I'm just surprised it's breaking 2 and then subject. Why is there a line break between the 2 and the subject? Oh, I have it here. I'm sorry. Okay. So I need to get rid of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's running right now across all of them, building that list, and then just dumped them in here, right? So this is a function I use in Site to use as output window instead of a GUI. But you can just see how you can very quickly, iterate over your, a given folder, look for certain things. You could write your own rules in AutoHotkey. If the rules in Outlook are pretty amazing, right? If you haven't used them, even if you're using them a lot, you're probably still not using them enough. I mean, they are amazingly how specific you can be. But what you can't do is tell it to take actions, trigger. You can tell it to do some basic stuff, but with AutoHotkey, I can do a lot more, right?
Yeah. We actually have a question in the chat. Where can you get the attachments and save them to a location?
Yep. Actually, and if you ping me, send me an email, I'll send you that exact. I have a script that does that you can go through, iterate over a certain folder, look for like a subject line or whatever, who it's from, and then save the attachment, or attachments to a certain folder. And again, like that, it comes in really handy.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was too specific, but as a concept, it's still great. And so that is how you can, loop over folders, and you can actually, in here, I was telling it to get, mail items, but you can loop over your calendar and get all appointments, right? And do things like that as well. It's pretty cool.
One of the things here is also if let's say you looked for specific things within the body of the emails, you could scrape that and use that for references to something in your next send.
Yeah, actually,
just like you did with the. Let's say we had a nice lunch the other day. You might have other tells within your emails. So instead of actually sitting there and personalizing them, you could look up stuff like that.
Right.
Using dates of the email and other weird stuff like. So yeah, a lot of opportunities there.
I have this contacts builder. I'll demonstrate here at the end, but it loops over whatever you tell it to loop over and builds an address book basically of a count for a given email address, how many times you've sent emails between to them, the number of attachments, the number of whatever, the last date you received or sent one to them. And so it's not quite what Jackie's talking about, but it's a great way to figure out like, oh, you know what, here are people who I do a lot of work with, and yet at the same time I can filter it down and say, I haven't received an email from this guy in 6 months. I need to reach out to these people.
Exactly.
All right, so let's move on to the next one, which this one, this was showing, and I'm trying to remember. I think I see initially. Sorry, I'm okay. Not initially. I wrote this, but it really was a goal because the client had a spreadsheet with all the things in it to create events for. And so I didn't want to share his events, but two was I wanted to make it easy to just show how this works. But in here, so we're going to create a calendar appointment. And here I have it the start time. So it's the same thing as an email, right? I probably should have fleshed out a slide that would talk through the parameters you're setting, but there is a lot in a calendar event. So there's the body, the subject line. If you want to have a reminder, and the audio file. So this is like on your computer, right? If you wanted to play, and I dumped it all into this create appointment function, and here are the things in an appointment. This is why I did it in a function. Was I'm passing all these parameters here. But down here, you can see, like, I'm creating the appointment.
You're using a constant value there.
Yeah.
Where when you created the item for the mail, you used a 0. And now when you're creating an appointment, you're using a 1.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. And then I'm setting parameters for it of if I want it to be an all-day event. So it's rare I do these, so I think I left that hard-coded. I don't think I have that as a parameter in my function call. But I can pass all these items, parameters, to this function, and I'm here are the constants, and this is why it took me a while to write this out. That's why I'm like, I'll send you this because it's just painful looking them all up and figuring them out. But let me you are basically just populating like we did with the email, right? We're populating the parameters, we're setting them, and so right here. I'm saying, my body is up here. It's my test of body, and the subject somewhere in there is I set the subject. But all this thing, I'm going to go ahead and run this, and we're going to see it. Here is my appointment, right, for 9/1/2017, which apparently is in the past. So I just had my warning pop up.
It's 6 weeks overdue.
Yeah, man, I'm running behind. But even if we look at, what is it? It's not the format text. It isn't recurrent. Oh, private and high importance. So it's marked as low importance. It's not marked private. But a lot of these parameters here, the color, see how it's red? So on your calendar will show up red. And I did that. I passed up here. Category blue. Oh, here, the default, I put in default of blue, but if you specify the color here, and there are some basic colors, I think somewhere down there, I actually put what colors you can use, but I'm not seeing them. Where category? Oh, it's category. That's what category, blue category. Oh, I put the hyperlink, so you can go look up the categories.
Probably easier.
Yeah, but it's another great way if you had a list of a spreadsheet, right, or just a tab delimited list above, like we did in the other one. You can easily go create a bunch of appointments. Which, I mean, who wants appointments, right? But sometimes you have to do stuff like that. Or let's say how's this? Every time someone you get an automated message from some system, and you're an admin and you have to go add an appointment body and include certain people, right? It could all be written in a program and just dynamically get the email come in, read the time and date, and then have it populate this script and crank it out.
Yeah, you could also add an attendee or something to a lot of different meetings where, there's a lot of different things you could actually do. Easily change your busy status or, the category of a lot of appointments, because you can loop over them just as well as you can create them.
Right. Okay, we got 6 minutes. This is perfect. Let me get to my last one. So this is I'll do it. There's a lot of code in here, right? But let me start launching it here. So this one, Maestriath, the author of AutoHotkey Studio, I came up with the overall idea, and then I helped with a lot of the figuring out of what values and objects and stuff. But what it does is it goes over all of my PST files, which is what like the overall email addresses I have, right? And it loops over all of them and first shows them and shows the folder structure. And if I've run it, it will show you how many emails are each one, and I can click and unclick. Right, this is where I brought him in. Of like he is amazing at being able to build GUIs and to dynamically do stuff at looking at things. And I'm like, okay, that's not in my realm of expertise by far. But let me see here. Where's my? Oh, that is that one. But all right. Oh, and I haven't gone over it. So I've noticed how these are all 0. Right, I haven't run it yet. I'm going to say start. It's got 4,315. Oh, just in the sent folder, man. This might take a minute, but it's right now. It's looping over every email in each of these, and the ones that are checked, each of these folders. Right. So there's apparently I had 1,200 sync issues. Interesting. Let's see what happens when it gets to the next one, because typically it doesn't take that long. What's also awesome is it's built in as after I run it once and I rerun it, it only adds new emails. It doesn't. It keeps track of what it did and didn't check. And what it does is it builds that address book with values in it of for each email address on each of these accounts, the PST files. It brings back it stores for every given email address the number of emails we've exchanged. Okay, so to finish. Oh, it did. All right, and the numbers are populated here now. At least some of them are. But where's my? Oh, I see. That's why. Okay, that's why. All right, my bad. So you, Jackie, you not only you have your own folder and you still got a lot in that. But anyway, you can see how it's interactively working with Outlook and pinging it, returning data, and then this is where I can export it to first to a tab delimited list and then to Excel, and I can use that to say, hey, who are people that I used to talk to a lot, but I haven't talked to recently, and for sales, right? That's really helpful because it's easy to have people drop off your list when you have hundreds of clients. You might forget who you really work with, or let's say you're at work, and like I did in January, I quit. Right, and they basically want to shut you out of your computer as fast as possible. Well, of course, maybe theoretically I ran this on my computer before I left and was able to basically extract all the information about all the people I'd exchanged emails with. Right, I don't have to have, because the other thing is if I grabbed every email, of course I can move their PST files if I have access to them. But they could be gigabytes, right? This file I extract, it's a couple hundred K, maybe it's a meg.
Yeah.
I mean, it's small.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pure text. So,
but it's also for any given account, it's only each email address is one line. So even though Jackie, you and I probably had hundreds and hundreds of emails, you would only show up once in that account, right? Yeah. Your email address would only show up once. But anyway, so that's why it's really small because it's not actually. I keep a list of all the attachments, the size of the attachments, which can give you a little gauge also of like how much work do you do. But I thought that was a good example of what you can do, right?
It sure is.
Let me because we're coming up on the hour, and that was you know what? I closed the deck. There really wasn't much more. I mean, I'll send out the info, hopefully tonight or tomorrow. But there we go. So we do have some resources. This Mickers tutorial, I learned a lot from that. It's really old now, but it has a lot of great information. I had a couple other where I borrowed heavily from this creating an appointment and looping over emails. And then here are some MSDN resources. So that the overall object model for Outlook. Actually, I'm sorry. That's the overall. This is just the object model for creating new emails, for appointments, for contacts, for calendar, for folders. They had some VBA examples, and then I have some examples, but not many. I think I have 2 or 3 on my site. And then I just also showed, like on Stack Overflow, you can find examples for typically for VBA with Outlook, right? And then this is for those who haven't attended the Comm in Excel webinar. This is a link to that. Awesome. So we're going to stop. So the way we normally do this, I'm going to stop recording. Let me see if I can chew bubble gum and do this at the same time. I'm going to stop recording.